Hey, thanks for joining me after the sermon. And so today we looked at Titus chapter 2, verse 11. And a very critical passage. It's really the framework that really flows the whole section here from verse 11 all the way to verse 14, where the subject of this long sentence is grace. And so it was important for me today, instead of breaking down everything and digging into every individual word, it's really important for me today to ask the question, have you experienced God's grace? Because I could sit here and explain grace, and I can go to cross-references, and I can talk about different illustrations and all of that, but my goal at the end of the message is not that you understood grace. My hope for you is that you experience it, that you would understand that God, in His grace, will not treat you according to what your sins deserve, but that He has offered a way of escape from His own wrath through the death and resurrection of His Son. That anybody, young, old, man, woman, any ethnicity, any person, could come to Christ and be saved. Not because they're good enough, not because they're smart enough, not because they've jumped through some religious hoops. That's false religion. That's what other people think. That's what everybody else thinks, that you just do a bunch of good things and then God will respond to you by being gracious. He'll make up for what you lack. That's not the God of the Bible. He doesn't make up for what you lack. He provides everything you lack in order to be right with Him. And so while I could explain the text and while I could talk about each individual word and all that, after the sermon, I want to plead with you. I want you to ask yourself, has grace appeared to you? Do you have the salvation that this passage talks about? Do you know that you would go to heaven if you were to die today? I've wrestled with this with many people. And like I say at the end of the message, salvation is not based on the intensity of your faith. It's not based on how strong your faith is. Salvation is based on what you're trusting in. And most people today are trusting in their good works. They're trusting in some resume that they have that shows them that they're a good person, that calms their own guilty conscience to say, I'm not that bad, I'm good. The issue is not, are you a good person? The issue is, are you a perfect person? Because God is perfect. And He only allows perfect people into heaven. And if you say right now, well, that's ridiculous, that's impossible. It's not impossible. That's what Jesus did. He offers you grace. He did everything you need to go to heaven. There's nothing left for you to do. You trust Him. And that's all. I used the illustration from Matthew chapter 18 about the king that forgives the servant an inestimable amount of debt. And Jesus used that to talk about forgiveness, to encourage people to forgive other people, and because of how much they've been forgiven. But just think about this for a second. How offensive would it be if you were forgiven $19 trillion, like the servant in the story? And as you're leaving the king who's given you that huge gift, you reach into your pocket and you feel a quarter. And you walk up to the king and you say, hey, thank you. And you slip that quarter in his hand and you squeeze it real tight and say, it's a little gift to say thank you for all that you've done for me. That would not be a good thing. That would be offensive. And that is why our good works are filthy rags to God. They're worthless to Him. Our good works mean nothing to Him, because of the massive amount that He offers to forgive. So yeah, it's one thing to hear the text, it's one thing to read it and to study all of that, but the issue is, have you experienced the grace of God? I hope you have. And if you had, I would say, please email me, contact me. My email is simple, jon@redeemeraz.org. Contact me. I'd love to talk to you about this. This is the most important question that you can answer. Is, have you experienced the grace of God? Are you saved? I hope you can say that with a resounding, firm, confident yes, not because of anything that you are, but because of everything Jesus is.